What's up, guys? Man, we got a lot that's been going on since last season. I mean, a lot. And I want to talk about the Georgia game in a future video before the game. Get that out. But today, I just want to get this off my chest. The ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 joined, and the Friendship Alliance that I'm sure everybody's seen. A lot of you guys have made videos on it. I was watching Pigskin Pete's stream last night about it, and hearing some of his feelings, and heard a lot of feelings from a lot of ACC fans. And I think it's pretty easy to say that all of us football fans in the ACC are seeing it as laughable, and we should. And I'll get to that stuff, but there's one way, and the chances of this happening are, tiny. But there's one way, and it's the only way that this little alliance could actually hurt the SEC and benefit the teams in these conferences. And here it is. I'll just get straight to it. So we know that there's supposedly going to be a scheduling alliance, and we know, okay, they're supposed to all be playing each other. They haven't released any sort of anything about what it's going to look like. It's just a bunch of words at this point. The only way that it would hurt the SEC is if this happens, is if everybody in those three conferences schedules, say, 11 Power 5 games, and everybody plays one team from the other conferences. So for Clemson, you'd have one game against a Big Ten team and one game against a Pac-12 team, and then you'd keep the Clemson-South Carolina game, which, okay, that might help the SEC a little bit with the rivalry game still there. But then you've got 3 Power 5 out-of-conference games. And if that goes all the way around, it's going to leave only one slot open. And I can promise you that most of the teams from the Big Ten, Pac-12, and ACC, given that scenario, are not going to schedule a 12th Power 5 team. And I promise you a lot of the group of 5 teams are going to be desperate to schedule a lot of these teams. FCS teams, especially in South Carolina and a lot of these other places, depend on that game against the Power 5 team for money, so they're going to be pushing to have it. So in this scenario, where all the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 teams are playing 11 Power 5 games, that leaves the SEC, outside of rivalry games, which I would hope would still happen, they'd be out of luck as far as scheduling other Power 5, or Power 4, I should say, these days, teams. So what would happen in that scenario is the SEC would be forced to schedule out of conference, all FCS and group of 5 teams. And that would be what all of their non-conference consists of. Maybe they probably would go to 9 conference games. So you'd have, for most teams that don't play an ACC rival, you'd have 3 group of 5 and FCS teams, which of course is the case for them right now. The SEC schedules the weakest out of conference every season. That's given, and I understand the ACC is not far behind. I do get that, but the SEC always leads the way in the weakest out of conference as a whole, with the conference as a whole. So it's not going to be much different there. The problem is you're still going to have all that major exposure within the SEC games, but the ACC and all those guys, all of their out-of-conference games are going to be, bigger games. And I would hope that they would schedule it to where the best of each conference play each other. So, Clemson would have maybe one year Oregon and Ohio State, or Oregon and Michigan, USC, Michigan, something like that. Now, this is all just a perfect scenario if the Alliance actually did what it was supposed to do, because I think we all know, in the fact that I forgot who it was that was scheduled, but there was an Alliance team, I think it was USC, that just scheduled a game with LSU or something. I think that was it, LSU and USC or something like that. So a day after this alliance with the scheduling things is announced, there you go. You've already got SEC getting big old primetime games with alliance teams. So at the end of the day, it sucks. It did nothing for us. And now it looks like at least the Pac-12 has announced that there's not going to be any expansion. I said it the whole time. If the ACC doesn't get Notre Dame out of this, the ACC is going to be hopelessly left behind because they're not going to do this scheduling alliance. It might be one team from those conferences a year, if that. And it's a disaster. The SEC is making way more money. The Big Ten is going to be fine, but the Pac-12 and the ACC are screwed in this alliance and in this deal. The fact that the Pac-12 isn't going to look at adding teams shows that athletics is not a priority for them, for those schools. And in the ACC, we'll see. We'll see. If they announce tomorrow that they're not expanding, that they're not going to be able to get Notre Dame, then it's hopeless. And given or barring what I discussed happening, or some other kind of crazy deal that gets Clemson a lot of money, exposure, and good quality games, there's no excuse for Clemson not to be doing what they can to get into the SEC. I know it might not happen. It's probably not going to happen. But Clemson should be fed up with the ACC and how much the ACC has done nothing to help Clemson over the years. It's a mess. Other football schools in the ACC should be mad too. And I will say too, there's schools in the ACC like Miami and Virginia Tech that could have done their part to help the TV deal get better, to help all that kind of stuff, and even Florida State right now. Florida State, Virginia Tech, Clemson, and Miami, and maybe North Carolina are all playing at a high level and winning at least 10 games every other year. The contract is much bigger. But here we are in a mediocre stalemate. The powerful football schools in the ACC outside of Clemson are all in a stalemate right now. They're all down. So hurts us, hurts our ability to make money, hurts our strength of schedule, our exposure, who watches the games. It's not hurting recruiting too much, but down the road, if you're not making enough money, if you get left behind to such an extent, it's going to be hard to overcome. South Carolina is irrelevant in every way in football right now, and they're bringing in 2 times the revenue of Clemson. And football is the major revenue. It's not the little Olympic sports. It's not women's basketball that's pulling them over the top. It's not baseball that's pulling them over the top. It's the SEC, and Clemson cannot sit here and let the ACC just be a basketball irrelevant conference where most of the schools average 30,000 fans a game and talk about basketball most of the year. It cannot happen, and we'll see what the leadership's all about. We'll see what happens here. I'll talk about Georgia down the road, but just wanted to get that out there. So we'll see what happens. Go Tigers.